Welcome, folks, to another episode of the Work Item Podcast. We're bringing you every week insights from awesome folks in the tech industry. And today I have here on the show, Chloe Shih. Welcome, Chloe.
Hi, yay. Thank you so much for having me, Den.
Yes, very excited to talk to you about today because I have so many questions. And before I get into them, tell us more. What are you working on these days?
Yeah, okay. So I guess from a career perspective, I am currently a product lead at TikTok. And so I'm kind of in the middle of a career transition. So by the time this episode comes out, I probably no longer will be at TikTok, but have a lot of stories to tell. And then on a more personal note, I have just been trying to work on some creative things like videos, and then working on a Discord and streaming and just fun creative projects that I normally would not have engaged in. But now I have a little break in my life. So I'm just trying to focus on fun stuff. Yeah. Like singing and gaming and drawing.
And being on the show.
Yes, and being on the show. Yeah. Thank you for your patience, by the way. I know it took us some time to schedule this.
Shameless plug, but I know that there's a lot of stuff that is way more fun than the show. But I know that before I even talked to you to come on the show, I, again, watched your YouTube videos, and I know that you had some collabs that were awesome, and you're a great product manager. So tell me more about your unique story in product, because what I've noticed is you have this kind of a mix of product, business development, operations. What all led to this?
Yeah, it was definitely a story, and it was not a straight shot for sure. I started off my career working in operations analytics at Google, and it was honestly very boring. It was just literally very operations heavy, very SQL heavy. And it was, I don't know. I think it was first job out of college, wasn't really sure where exactly in the industry I wanted to be in. And then I was really fascinated with gaming. So I started interviewing in all kinds of gaming realms, and then got an offer at Google internally to switch over to support the analytics team, but behind Pokemon Go. And I was going to join that, or this esports company, or this this streaming company in the startup space. And so I kind of pivoted my career into going into the live entertainment area. And then I initially got an offer to be a PM or a product manager at the company, or go into biz dev, business development. And then I was looking at the leadership team, and I don't think there wasn't any formal structure around product management. But then the business development senior vice president, she was this, wait, can we curse or no?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. She was this badass female leader in tech who's very OG MySpace, and then was at Microsoft a long time ago, and worked at Valve, and then made Steam the way it was today, and then became head of content at Oculus, and got acquired by Facebook, and sat next to Sheryl Sandberg. And then she would have been my boss. So I decided, I'll just go into business development there. And through that experience, I got to really meet a lot of our content creators that was part of the streaming platform, and was able to pitch a bunch of feature ideas that would help them and elevate their careers. And so that was the beginning of product for me. I wasn't by title a product manager, but the company I was at didn't really have product managers because it was led by ex-Apple execs. And, Apple is not a very product management driven type company. Yeah. So I was doing a lot of PM work there. And it really came down to I was extremely good at BD, and I really liked doing it. But as much as I sold and did partnerships and made things happen, I was always bottlenecked by the product. And so I wanted to push product forward to create, new possibilities. And then I got really intrigued. And then that was the start of the journey. Yeah.
And what a journey it was, it seems. But
yes.
I do have a question to that, because you called out something that's very important to me. And when I talk to folks who are early in their career, they have this question. So you mentioned that the first job that you got was boring.
Yeah.
And when I talk to folks that are just starting out in the industry, they're fresh out of college, whether they're going to work at a startup or a big tech company, it doesn't really matter. But essentially, they're asking, well, I have the opportunity to do this job that's kind of boring, but it is a foot in the door. Or should I hold out to get my dream job, whether it's working like at a gaming company or at some game studio somewhere? What are your thoughts on that? Like, should one take the boring job to get into the industry, or should they wait?
Um, yeah, it's a very personal question. I think it depends on your risk tolerance and where you're at financially. I think I just needed to take like my first job. And if you're an international student, then there's like the options are so much more limited, and you should definitely take a FANG job that will sponsor your work visa. Yeah. Wait, did you take a very standard traditional first job when you first got out, if you
Well,
remember?
first of all, I'm the international student you're talking about.
Oh, okay, okay.
So I had to get for a company that would sponsor the whole thing,
Oh,
but
that's so hard. Yeah.
yeah, it is very hard. But no, actually, I my first job was as a dev on some game related stuff, funnily enough, and I got a little bit, I don't want to say bored, but like right after that internship, I was like, wait, there's a thing called product. What is that about?
Yeah.
I get to talk to people and I get to decide things. Yes, let's do it. Sign me up. And it kind of like, I just stuck around with that. I don't know, but I wouldn't say it was boring. Well, I guess it depends, because I worked on Outlook desktop. Like if you find email entertaining in any capacity, then sure. But it was definitely not something that I'd be like, wow, this is the kind of stuff you brag about. Like, what do you do? Like, oh, I built the next Skyrim. What about you? Email client?
Some people love it. Some people are really, they nerd out a lot about productivity and emailing, since that's their life. But I know what you mean. I feel you. But I'm glad you had like a fun first. It sounds like a fun first job.
It is a fun. Yeah, it is a fun one.
I would say like so the question is, should I do something that's more non-traditional, that probably is something more adventurous versus like the safe path starting out? I think it depends on what questions you're trying to answer at that time of your career. Like, do you have a burning desire to potentially go into gaming or entertainment or I don't know, like fashion? And if you do, there's no better time to answer that than at the beginning of your career. But if you're strapped for money and you need something stable, then it's a very realistic decision to go with the safe choice. And you can like moonlight, or you could just like do things on the weekend to help better answer that burning question you have. So it's a really hard, it's really difficult. I do want to say that a lot of people have told me this. I'm really risk averse. Like, I just am afraid of taking risks because of the financial component, and the decision only gets harder because you're just strapped in further and deeper and deeper. So, yeah, it's not easy. It's not an easy.
It's a tricky one. And I can definitely relate to the financial aspect, because like I grew up in Eastern Europe and my family was by no means wealthy, and having kind of the financial stability is such a huge, I think, cornerstone that kind of got, I don't want to say like beaten into me by life, if you will, that it was just like, there's like, you have to have a stable job that can hold you out for like, what if something happens tomorrow? Like, what do? Do you have enough savings? Like, it's hard. Like going to a startup and saying, yeah, you might not make money for the next 5 years. If our startup works, you might get equity, but then
I know it's so rare. Most people I know won't stay at the startup for longer than 3 years, 2 to 3 years, because it just crashes and burns, and it's like not a good culture fit, or you don't grow anymore. Like, why waste your time? But you won't get that equity incentive. So it's so difficult. And I have to say, like, the industry is hard because like all the people who are really successful, successful, and the ones that are on all the PR releases and on all the articles, these are people who, most of them could afford to take a risk, like could afford to fail. They have like that safety net. So that's a really personal decision. I think a lot of people actually, they like project out the exact amount of money that they need in case like the worst case scenario fails, or like they create a runway for 3 months or 6 months. Yeah.
Right. And like you said, there's so many factors that go into that decision because, another one is like work-life balance. Like, do you want to work nights and weekends or do you have other plans? Maybe, maybe
Yeah,
not. I don't
yeah.
know. Like,
It's tough. It's super tough. And it's also just hard to get a first job. So like sometimes you're so burnt out.
right, right. And especially with the first job, I think now the more I think about it, it's also, even if you take that boring job or whatever the first job that might not be the perfect one, I feel like it still would make your next job a little bit easier, right? Because if you're going to go to an interview and you say, well, I've never worked anywhere else before, and I only have these side projects, probably be a harder sell than coming with somebody that says, yeah, I've been at Google and I've been building, I don't know, some behind the scenes plumbing system for this infrastructure project. But you're
Yeah,
like, but at
yeah.
least you have something to talk about.
Yeah, there's something there. So yeah, that said, I don't think there's a wrong path. There's just your path that, yeah, and you just got to know the pros and cons and the trade-offs and the things that you're giving up and the things you're trying to accomplish in that 1 to 2 years of your career. Yeah, tough decisions.
Right. So, as with anything on this podcast, there's no single answer, and adjust to your life situation. So don't take what we talk here as gospel. It's definitely not. It's just opinion of two people.
Yeah, exactly. But if I could go back, I don't think I would have I wanted to take that first job.
Really?
Yeah.
What would you do instead?
Um, if I could go back to the beginning of college, I'm actually unsure if I would want to go to college, to be honest. I'm like I studied a lot. I studied an insane amount, and I just felt like for what? I just never really had a good, I don't know, just a good center, or I was really grounded. I just thought like authority, education, I just need to get good grades, listen to the professor. But I didn't build like my own voice. And then going into the industry, I joined Google, and like I only really joined Google because it's a brand name. Like that's it. There was just nothing I could do at that level at Google would be meaningful. Like at a company of 100,000, there's nothing there for me at that level. So um, I wish that I just enacted on my dreams a little bit earlier in life and not try to adhere to like the societal norm of what is good and what is yeah, I feel like that's what I did because I was afraid and it was just a safe thing. But I remember how it felt like then, and I was afraid to do anything. So I'm not sure if I would have the guts, but knowing what I know now, maybe it would have been better.
It's an interesting dilemma because thinking back to college, I think I can't think of. Well, I can't think of a few classes that I probably still remember and use stuff from. Like there was formal ethics. I think that was a fun class. But things like computer science and all that, it's like I don't like I coded in my free time and that's what helped me get the job and that's what helped me kind of build those connections, but not necessarily college classes.
Yeah, yeah, and it's expensive.
And it is very expensive.
Yeah, so
And back to the risk
yeah.
profile, right? It's like how much do you want to go into financial debt at the stage in life? But then it's also tricky because in our industry, there's so much that hinges on that degree, right? Like it's
Yeah.
kind of like a filter for better, for worse, but it is the case, right? Where it's like if you don't have a degree in computer science or engineering or whatever, they're like, okay, we're not even going to talk to you.
Yeah, but I never was a CS major. So then I don't think my degree was actually that useful. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they checked for it. If I could substitute that entire degree for like a product boot camp that would have like gotten me my first job, then maybe that would have been a better use of my time and money. Yeah.
Actually, tell me more. How was it looking for when you were starting out, finding a position without a CS degree? Because that's, I think, probably a misconception that exists today, that if you want to work in tech, you have to either go CS or electrical engineering or whatever.
Yeah.
What was your journey like?
Well, it was hard because I was industrial engineering and operations research.
Mhm.
And even though it was like very, very quant heavy and like programming heavy too, but more on like the quant side, nobody took IOR majors unless you got a master's or a PhD, and then you're like the actual operations researcher behind the people who figure out the algorithm around Amazon's delivery network. Like those are people who publish research papers and prove algorithms and proofs, and I was just not that kind of person. And so I felt like my degree at the undergraduate level was kind of useless. And if I could go back to change my degree, I would have, like, yeah, I think I just would have wanted to do something that I genuinely would have liked, instead of like trying to find the most rigorous path that was feasible.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think it was helpful at all. Yeah, not for data science, not for product management, not for CS. Like there was no role that wanted me specifically. So I sent a lot of applications out, got rejected a lot. And that's what happens if you're just not the perfect fit.
Getting rejected a lot. That is, oh, how fortunate are we to work in tech industry right now and have like actual a position? Because I remember getting those rejections and I was like, oh no, not again.
I know, it was brutal. I think I like one time, I think maybe, I don't know if it's for an internship or for full time, but I submitted like 150 applications in like a 3 weeks time period. I just kept going. Yeah, and I got rejected to like everything except for one.
Yeah, also, now I'm going off script again, but there's another question. How do you cope with the rejection of that? Because it seems that the more, wouldn't you get discouraged at some point? It's like, okay, this rejects, it just kind of accumulates.
You know, I had this plugin called Kill My Feed on Facebook because every kid was posting their like next offer an internship, and I was just like, I hate you all. I don't want to see this. So I just like disabled the entire feed on Facebook, and that helped me a lot. Also, I just wanted to remind myself, like, even though they got the banking, like, I went to school in New York, so everyone was getting banking offers and consulting offers at the top firms. And I was like, I know I don't want to do that. So even if I see their success, that's just not me. I need to do what's right for me, which is going to tech. And then everyone who was getting offers in tech were software engineers or like comp sci majors. And I had to constantly remind myself, like, this is my own personal journey. I can't really compare their offers and their experiences in mine. That said, that helped me cope with my own journey, but that didn't help me be informed of the opportunities I could have been, I don't know, like setting myself up for. I decided to like just not hear what other people are going through. And I think that kind of was a bad experience because I didn't know how better things could be. So I only knew the data from like my own offers and rejections. And so when I finally got my offer, I didn't realize that I was like making 1/3 of what everyone else was. And I was like, what the heck? This is not a good feeling. And when I finally found that out like a year later, it was awful. Yeah.
Kind of, I think this is part of why it's important to have the conversation about things like pay.
I know. And it's scary to talk to your I guess students or like friends about this. Like, you don't, that's like a muscle that none of us had exercised at that period of our lives, but now it's just like, it's still uncomfortable, but I think a lot of us are able to talk about it more openly.
Right. And it's because, again, by society's norms, just like college we talked about, it's kind of instilled into us, like, you don't talk about finances stuff. Like,
Yeah.
why not? Wouldn't that make you better suited to make better financial decisions?
Yeah. So it's a tricky time. How to balance it all? Man, it's hard. It's hard. I just wish I had mentors at the time to guide me through it, but I didn't. It was just like me and my social media and my Google searches.
You know, you mentioned that your career wasn't as linear as one would expect a career to be in product, because we see, again, from feeds on LinkedIn, on Facebook and Twitter, these positive stories. You know, I hop from job to job and I get promoted and all these things. And every career has its struggles. Every career has its bumps in the road where you have to overcome them. Tell me more about your experience. What was your career like, and what were some of these difficult times when you had to stand up for yourself?
Yeah, there are so many. I think that my first joining Google was like I thought I had made it, you know? It's like your first job at Google. It seems amazing. But I wasn't a software engineer at Google. I wasn't making nearly as much as those other my classmates were. And I think in my role, I just kind of that they kind of sold my role differently. You know, your recruiters do that, teams do that. They say, "Wow, this is fancy thing," and in reality, it's just like a bunch of, I don't know, data entry or emailing or like operational work. And and I think I fell for that because I was like so desperate to just get that first offer and then take it. I didn't negotiate. Well, I tried to, but they're like, this is non-negotiable. That sucked. And then I joined the company and realized that I was just being, I don't know how to say this, like undervalued, or like they would just constantly think that I'm a new grad. I am really average. Like everyone else is super smart. I think I was like trying to show that I was on a track to go more accelerated, like go for promo, try to take a leadership role. And these are the experiences that I had always, you know, had in my career, whether that's in school or that's in my side projects or that's in the nonprofits or like my internship. I've always like been in the top like three, just top three people. And so I think at the time when I was like trying to show my leadership abilities and develop myself to the next level, I would be met with like oh, you're just a number. Like I remember a manager straight up said, "Hey, I know you want to do this thing and you want to get promoted, but I just want to tell you that everyone here is smart at Google, and you coming out and graduating, you're just one of the many. So it's really difficult to get to that next level. You know, percentage wise, it's not likely. It'll probably take over 2 years." And then all I heard was, "Here are the historical stats, and I'm not making any effort to recognize you for your abilities. I'm only recognizing you for the average of the distribution." And I just didn't want to be at a place where people would just see me as a number and they wouldn't actually look at me for like the talent, the value, the ideas. And so I knew it wasn't a place for me to grow. Yeah. And it was like, yeah, it was very difficult. Also, just working, I think what was really challenging was like hanging out with my classmates. They were paid software engineer salaries, and to know like I'm only a third of their salary just pissed me off to no end. I'm like, you weren't even that great of a student in college. Like, I don't understand. You never showed up to class. You were mean. You cheated. Yeah. So it was like kind of a tough place to be in mentally. You know, everyone has different scenarios. So that was like a challenge. Then I transitioned over to the startup called Caffeine. I mean, all of this is on my LinkedIn. And I loved the startup in the first 1 to 2 years. It was like the best career experience I've ever had. But then we got some crazy funding, and we started to like pivot. And you know, when startups pivot, culture changes. And then talent changes because you hire externally, you bring in leadership and management from other companies. And so the way that we decide and the way that people get invited to a decision-making room, that changes. And it was such a struggle because I had been such like a high-performing OG for like since the beginning. And then to have all the power players like come in and change things up was like really, man, it was really painful. I want to share like specific times when it was rough, but I guess that was like one of the first times I realized that I am an Asian woman. Like I just recognized, oh wow, I'm an Asian woman, and that's different because I worked in BD and we had to fly down to LA a lot to meet with like talent agencies. And so most of the time when we would go down, I would pitch the company and like run and lead a potential partnership with like some of the biggest agencies in Hollywood. And many times the clients that I'd be working with, they would ask me really inappropriate questions and be like, "Are you married yet? Or did you just graduate college? How old are you?" And then they would also assume that I'm the assistant and ask me to get coffee or water. And I'm like, "Oh, no. I'm like the person, I'm the senior manager here. Like we're doing the deal. Like it's you and me. There's not an assistant. And then even though we were the same age, I just always felt just people were just looking down on me, and they just felt I was really young. Yeah, but I had a really strong work ethic, and I continued to be on top of it. And I led some of the biggest partnership deals at the company that led to the literally most needle moving impact. So I'm really proud of that. Another time was like, oh man, so many hard things. Another time was I was in a meeting. Okay, so we just went to GDC, which is Game Developers Conference in San Francisco, and we were doing like these partnership deals with a bunch of game devs. And the entire BD team is like 10 plus people, and everyone was like 5 to 15 years my senior, all dudes. I was like the only girl, and I was the youngest girl too. And I was the first person to get the first 2 deals signed. And then I think like 10 minutes or 5 minutes before a meeting started, we like hopped on this call, and people were like, wow, Chloe, how did you get these deals done? And then I was like about to answer, and then this guy interjected, and he's like, oh, I know how she got the deals done. I don't know if anyone noticed, but she's a young female, and she's talking to a lot of game developers. And when, older male game developers talk to a young female, of course they can't say no. And then it was meant to be a joke. And I was just like so shocked, because it just never crossed my mind that would be someone's thought process, instead of like, she just, killed it at the assignment. She understood the assignment. She killed it and crushed it and led this new process, a new partnership, or was able to understand what people want and build this business. It came down to, oh, she's just a young lady. And yeah. And so that felt horrible. And then there's like many struggles, just like getting promoted into the positions that I wanted to be, and then being able to have my voice heard. That was really, really freaking hard. Yeah, I think I was like, culturally, it was just such a shock for me, because I'm someone who's like a listener, and I ask right questions, and I try to I try to facilitate. I'm the facilitator type. And when I'm in a room full of like alpha males, how decision making works is like the loudest person in the room gets the final say, and that's how the decision is made. And so it got so bad to a point where I was like so afraid to speak up that my boss gave me a bell to ring in a meeting, like a yellow bell, and I'd have to tap the bell if I wanted to talk. And I understood the intention behind it, but it was just really humiliating. Yeah. And I feel like everyone made fun of me for it, because I just like, wasn't as alpha as the other guys. Yeah. So yeah, those are just one of the hundreds.
You hear stories like this, and you hear stories like this from women in the industry going through these, and you're like, oh, this is an isolated incident. It's not an isolated incident. It's shockingly how casual, and even what you described is the fact that it was just kind of like, yeah, let's brush it off as a joke. It's a joke, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how often would you hear that kind of a joke given by a female towards a male, right? Like the other way around. Like that would not be perceived as a joke the other day. That's just offensive, right? And somehow we'll normalize like, oh, this is a joke, right? It's like the guy's just joking, instead of focusing on the fact that you're perfectly capable and you're talented at doing that.
Yeah, there are a lot of jokes and a lot of mistakes. I was just a guinea pig for a lot of different managers or senior people to, I don't know, rage on too. Like, I think, unfortunately, I think I blocked this all from my memory. But because I had been so present and been like the person to go to everywhere, I just happened to be in the room at the wrong time many times. And I didn't realize how emotional people can get at work, and they would just like flip out. And then I just happened to be a target, like the closest object that they can just like take out their rage on. And it was really scary because I don't at that time I didn't know how to react back. Yeah. I just it was it was like it was horrific. I think another time I told myself the reason why I was going to go into gaming was that I felt that I could be more of my authentic self. I didn't have to be like this straight edge, really buttoned up, cutthroat type person that spoke is like one specific way that's like really professional and book professional, I guess. Because I like my quirky self and I like my casual self, and I'm very competent and full of all kinds of skills, but I don't want to compromise my core personality. And so I think during this time when like a lot of new talent came in and a lot of changes were happening, we were seeing a wave of like old talent leaving and complaining. And so I just wanted to, I just worked extra hard at that time. And then I think a colleague of mine, he he tried escalating like the struggles that some of the team members were going through to the leadership team, and the leadership team was like, oh, well, is it because like Chloe is having problems with this? Because if it is, then it's not a problem. And then to be like singled out by the leadership team as like the problem child or the source of drama or whatever, when in fact in my headspace and in my actions I had not done a single thing that would rile up another person. I literally just like heads down, get this thing done, listen to my leadership team, make sure that they are set up for success. It felt really disheartening, like to be pinned as a scapegoat of like, you know, cultural changes or challenges. And then it got to a point where him and we were pretty good like friends at work. And after a hackathon, he was like, "Hey, can you chat?" It was like a Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. And we entered in like a phone room. And then he was like, "Look, I talked to leadership about these challenges that we had been talking about. And I don't know if you've noticed that I've been avoiding you lately." And I'm like, "Oh, no, I haven't. I'm busy doing my own thing. I don't know what you're talking about." He's like, "Okay, great. Well, just want to tell you that I heard this from leadership, and I just think that we can't be friends anymore." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He was like, "Look, we're colleagues before we're friends, but if the leadership team thinks that you're not leader material, then it hurts my reputation being seen with you. And maybe like it just sucks. Maybe I understand you're this bubbly personality and everyone loves you, but when you're trying to enter a room and you have to like influence people to make a decision and you're unable to because you're too bubbly, that shows really poorly on you. And maybe we just live in a terrible society where you just have to be really cold and stone, like have a heart of stone and be really deadpan to be considered a leader in Silicon Valley. And that's the world we live in, and you're just not that. And it's going to hurt my career if I like associate myself with you, and I hope you understand."
That to me sounds absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. I mean, it is kind of crazy. Like, really, you're going to suppress somebody's personality? And like, what is this? Mean Girls was like associating, oh, you can't be seen with us because otherwise, like, this is what?
Yeah, I think he just was going through a lot and he raged and he thought I was a problem. He took it out on me. And me at the time, like, I'm just such an understanding, like a kind-hearted person that I was like, "Oh, wow, like, thank you for giving me this feedback. I definitely will think about this. Like, don't worry about it. You do you. I just want to be supportive." I didn't realize I was crossing my own boundaries and not doing justice to my own self and not respecting who I am, not valuing who I was. I should have clapped back. I should have been like, "Do you hear what you're saying right now? Like, are you for real?" But yeah, the TLDR was like, "You're too bubbly. You're not leadership material. I can't hang with you because you're ruining my reputation."
I don't even know what to say. To me, it's like, this is just one of those things where if I don't even know how I would react if somebody would told me that at work. And,
yeah, I was shocked.
It's like you're this energetic person. Like, how about you like tone it down to 0 so that people can get along? But
yeah,
I'm curious to that because as folks can potentially get this kind of feedback at their workplace, again, wherever they work, whether it's a big company, a small startup, how do you know where to draw the line between feedback that says, here's how you can perform better versus suppress who you actually are to fit in?
I got an answer for you. Okay, have you ever heard of this thing called workplace PUA?
PUA? No idea what that is.
So it's because I work at a Chinese company, and there's like a lot of new terms that have just surfaced from working life. But there's this thing called workplace PUA that originated from PUA stands for pickup artist, and pickup artists are known to say things that are really emotionally manipulating to get you to think a certain way that is not the truth. So then it translated over to the workplace, and it means like where a colleague or a manager negs you or like gaslights you or calls you out for things about you versus the behavior of your work. So it's like, oh, you look dumb today with your new glasses, or you just sound really unprofessional, or your demeanor, like basically things about you that don't really map to what your statement of work entails. And that's a hard line, because you're basically attacking someone's character and their identity and their personality and how they show up to work, because you're just, I don't know, you just don't like the way that they look today, and that bothers you. So that's it. I've experienced this so many times in my career. And I realized, and it's really hard to recognize in the moment, but if you're ever checking yourself, hey, does this have to do with my actual work that my deliverables are that I was hired to do? If not, then is this something that they have good intentions to help me get through? Like maybe there's something that's very intangible, like maybe they want me to develop my public speaking abilities, and I stutter a lot, and then they just say, hey, I just want to share, I saw your presentation, think the content is amazing. I just know that maybe you're interested in getting a promotion, and I wanted to give you some feedback so that it can help elevate you for the next time you present to leadership. But I know the leadership team really values presentation quality, and I don't know, stuttering and saying words like pause words might not be super effective for them. That's what I've heard. So perhaps this is something that you could you can pay attention to next time. Yeah, I just like basically if the intention is really genuine about like wanting you to succeed, then it's okay. I feel like it's okay. But if it's something like they are saying something because they want them to succeed, like they want themselves to look good, and then they're attacking you for it, people can tell that they're placing blame on you for the lack of success of the team. And that's not okay, especially if they're a manager or like a higher up. They should have the humility and the ability to not have an ego and be able to uplift the entire team. Like, servant leadership, got to support the entire team. But that's like, those are traits of really poor leadership and people who are totally insecure about themselves. So insecure that they got to push someone else down. Yeah, just recognizing that will at least help me have the courage to be like, what do you mean? Yeah, I don't know what your intentions are saying the words that are coming out of your mouth right now. So could you just like clarify what your goal is?
Right. Sometimes the gut instinct actually is very, very helpful in that regard. It's like, oh, that didn't feel well. It probably because it was not that well intentioned sometimes. And I remember one of those moments in my career when very early in career, I think it was my first or second year at my full-time job, got in the meeting room with a person, and it was just me and this other person, and they're like, oh, somebody more senior gonna join us as well? And I was like,
God, no, I hate that. I hate
me.
That.
And they're like, oh, all right, well, okay, I guess we'll proceed. And then I was like, at the time I was like, oh, maybe he wanted my manager because they make a decision. But then like years later it dawned on me, he's like, damn it, that's not what it was. That's not what it was.
Yeah, people who play the seniority game and the years of experience game are very short-sighted, and I avoid these types of people as much as possible in my career, or I'm just cordial with them and I try not to engage further because they've just got something to figure out and I don't want to be part of that energy. It's not.
It's a ridiculous concept because why would somebody with no years of experience not be able to bring a good idea to the table or a good suggestion or drive an initiative or help? Like, sure, they don't have the experience yet. Why discard their ideas right off the bat based like, oh, you only joined our college?
Yeah, and um I think that these types of people are very much gatekeepers, or they're very territorial. And even if you are great talent and you're on their org, they'll feel threatened, and then they'll like axe you somehow. And you just gotta leave. Like if that's the type of leader that you're working for, you just gotta leave. There is no turning back. Like those people are very stubborn. Unless something life-changing happens, they never change.
My favorite anecdote of that was another meeting. Surprise, surprise. Product people have a lot of meetings. And we were pitching some project idea. And again, this person heard us out. And the first thing they did was just, I've been at this company for 20 years. This will never work. And just like smacks the table. And shocker, that project actually worked a year later. But, it's like, I've been here for 20 years. And so what?
I think that it's okay to say that in my 20 years of experience, I haven't seen it work because of XYZ reasons. So if you're able to address those, then I'm willing to work this out. But if not, I have a feeling that the same mistakes will happen again. Yeah, that should be the conversation. That's more constructive.
So we're talking about the seniority trap. How do you break out of that? What worked for you to kind of counteract? And you said being very cordial with those people. To what extent do you push back on somebody that comes to you and says, you know what? Yeah, I've been here for 5 years. I know better than you. You need to listen to me.
Dude, this is hard because it depends on what battles you want to. Yeah, like I don't want to. There's like not every hill is the hill I want to die on. And so it depends on if you're willing to stake it all. Like if you're willing to get fired, then by all means go and like run with your values and your virtue and be the righteous one. I think that like if I am willing to take that risk, then I wish like I could say all those words. Yeah, for me, I genuinely don't speak up about it as much as I should. And that's something I want to develop myself in my next stage of my career. Just like pushing back and being really assertive about when I see something that's wrong, even like slightly wrong, that doesn't make sense to me. I should respect my hunch and validate that question, validate the answer to the question that I have. And I just need to do that to respect, the questions that I have developed, because I've like over the years, you develop an eye for things. And if you ignore that, then what are you really working on? What are you growing? How are you changing in your professional life? Yeah. So I don't do very well. Something that I hear that works pretty well, that's not like very confrontational, is if you've ever read Never Split the Difference.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There's that one section on mirroring where you just like, if someone says, can you go print 20 copies of this email? You're like, sorry, 20 copies? And then you just kind of repeat what they say in a question format in hopes of getting clarity. And that forces the other person to think about what they just said and, verify that that's exactly what they want, and then share with you the gold. And usually if it's a ridiculous request, then they will be like, never mind, maybe just 10 copies or maybe not. And then you just like keep doing that until they give you, they're forced to give you the right reason. Yeah. And I think that's an excellent skill to just build for easy, low-hanging fruit circumstances.
So it's basically communicate what you're feeling, how it made you feel, and just make it in a way that is not necessarily attacking the person. Because I know that the first hunch sometimes can be like, what did you just say? You want me to do the copies for you? How about you go and then you're just getting like, I don't know how politically effective that can be.
Okay, so this is kind of an odd thing, but I don't know if you've worked with like execs who've been around tech for so long that they like don't really know how to download a PDF.
Yes, I know what you're
Or
talking
like,
about. Yes.
yeah, or they don't know how to use Excel, or they don't know how to use a dashboard. You know, we use Asana, we use Jira, we use like all this new tech, and they have never grown from just like email, just text copy paste email. Send me the raw, like send me the doc file, and I'm just like, dude, I can't work with you. And there's a lot of execs that are very needy, that you know, you do their quant analysis, you like aggregate all this information for them. And I would get all like continuous amounts of requests. And so I started just asking them what the purpose is. Like, why do they need this analysis? What is the business reason? And what's preventing them from like doing it themselves? Like everything's already there. This is a dashboard that was built. This is it. Like, yeah, you can
As
do
simple
it.
as it gets.
You can do it. It's linked. I'm excited for you to learn.
Yeah, those are kind of the life hacks of the industry that we probably need to compile like a book of these little things. It's like, here's how to win friends and influence people in 2021 if you work in tech.
Yeah, that was not super fun, but I feel like a lot of those mini circumstances can pigeonhole someone into doing meaningless tasks that makes you really just like hate your job. That's not fun either.
Right. How do you break out of that? Because to me, that's also a tricky one because sometimes you gotta push through the grunt work to get to something more meaningful. Like, I talk to people that, again, they're kind of stuck in their position. They're like, hey, I've been doing this job for the past 6 months. Kind of sucks. I have to do, like you said, like, oh, some data entry, and it's whatever. It doesn't push my boundaries, doesn't let me grow. But then you're like, yeah, but you've only been working for 6 months, and going somewhere else right now is probably going to hurt you in the long run.
Yeah, I feel that as someone who's hopped a lot of companies, it's a hard decision. My first instinct is always to stay and make it work. Um, and that's not easy. I think it depends on everyone's situation, but if it's something like I don't enjoy my work right now and I don't know what I want to do next, I think that person needs to do more reflection on what that next is. It doesn't make sense to change your situation to just run away from something bad, because the industry is very cyclical. Like you will see the same problems everywhere. And so running away from problems is not very beneficial, because then you're just going to see it again and then run away again, and you're just going to be tired and they're going to run out of companies.
Right. Yeah. My favorite one is when people be like, oh, I don't like because there's just too much politics and drama on my team. I'm going to go somewhere else. Like, guess what? Politics and drama are on every team because that's how
Yeah.
humans work. Like, there's going to be different degrees of it, probably.
I think if it's something more like this part of my job is really, really boring and doesn't give back to me, then do you really have to do it? Like, and then just negotiating with your management team, that is this statement of work that impactful and that needle moving to our top line metrics, then we shouldn't do it. Yeah. If like we're trying to invest in some dashboard and nobody looks at it, why even build it? Are you even ready to build out metrics for maybe like a new product that doesn't even have enough user base for us to see trends? Yeah, I just think that we can get lost in the everyday and not like figure out what our end goal is. So, you know, for people who are trying to make that change, what is their end goal and are they getting there? And also, the grass is never greener.
And what you described also depends heavily on having a supportive manager.
Yeah.
Somebody that is willing to go to bat for you and say, you know what? Like, yeah, maybe what you're working on right now is not as meaningful. Let me find you a meteor project that you can work on. Because you can also have a manager that's just kind of like, I don't care, just whatever.
Always. That's usually what happens. It's very hard to find a good supportive manager. But I think if you ever talk to your senior leadership or your HR team about it, they will always be like, "Do you talk to your manager yet?" So checking off that box. And if it's not your manager, then is there another senior manager within the org that you can talk to? Is there another senior IC? Is there someone outside the company? Just like have all these checks in place before making like a rage quit decision.
So we talked about all these challenges. It's not easy to push through this and keep yourself motivated and frame everything. From my conversation with you, what I hear is like you kind of take everything as a lesson. It's like, okay, now I know, and I know how to kind of work around that. What helped you push forward in spite of all these challenges, in spite of all the roadblocks, in spite of the fact that, like I said, you work on in a realistically male dominated industry where the perception is different? Like, what helped you?
Depends on every stage of my life in my career. Um, mm, Ultimately, is surrounding myself with the right voices to keep me keep me accountable or hold me accountable. Like, I think when I was trying to get out of a certain situation, I had a senior PM who coached me through like product interviews almost every day. And I shadowed him and he grilled me questions day after day, and that helped me keep myself on track. And it was also a reminder that I shouldn't always just put up with the situation you have in front of me. Like, just because it's a problem in my work life doesn't mean I have to solve it either. So going from, oh, these are problems I should solve and be a team player, to these are such toxic issues that no matter what I do, it'll only hurt me in the end. Those are two areas where I need to keep separate. Yeah. So just having the right voices around me, having the right people to coach me and hold me accountable and make progress for my way out, and um, just having like a very gut checking myself every so often to make sure I am motivated by the right reasons. Like, why am I leaving? Why do I want to go into this field? Why do I want to spend 20 hours a week training on something that doesn't give to me if things don't go through? Um, just like, what am I ultimately trying to accomplish, and does that make me happy? Like, where does that come from? Is it because I see everyone else on LinkedIn and they have it and it looks really prestigious, or is it something I truly like the day-to-day of? And then having kind of that mission or that your own pillars like hold you grounded whenever you're up against like a really challenging situation, then that helps me get through it all. Yeah. So I just want to have a good why for living my everyday, and no one can, I just have to remember that my voice matters more than anyone else's. Yeah. And then like only keep the voices around me that will help support me to get there.
How do you find those voices, the trusted people around you they can surround yourself with that can give you that sometimes difficult guidance and maybe like a second thought of like, hey, just a gut check, like, did I interpret this right, or what this other person did? Like, how do you find those people?
For me personally, I'm pretty social. I was very, very, very social early on in my career. So I got to meet a lot of people. But I think a huge part of it is like, for me, it was being vulnerable with my situation of challenge. So I would share my salary, I would share some of the conversations I've had. And not everyone does that. And like people maintain this like picture perfect image of themselves in career, and like good for them, I guess. But then I I need help, and I'm going to admit it, and I will share it with anyone that I think I can trust. And that comes with like mistakes where people hear the vulnerability and then judge you for it and take advantage of you for it. So I've made a lot of mistakes. Um, and I think I am fortunate now to not have those people in my life, because it like the vulnerability thing, I share my challenges and I share that I'm not perfect and I'm struggling with a lot of these things. It kind of challenges some of the people in my life, colleagues, friends, mentors. And it's like a character challenge. Like, depending on what they say, do I vibe with the values that they're projecting onto me in this answer? And if it uplifts me or gives me new perspective and I'm willing to accept and respect it, then I think that it's a very strong relationship that I can move forward in. And if it's not, if it's something that just like doesn't make sense with my set of values, then I just have to deliberately not associate myself with them anymore and like prune those relationships. For example, I did have a mentor in my life in my earlier college days. And he was like older than me. He was already working in in the industry. And he was like so great to me when I was a student. But then as I like moved forward into my professional life, I was like posting on my personal Instagram story around Mental Health Tuesdays, which is like the day I go work out, I go see my therapist, and then have like a self-care night. And then I would post every so often. And then he like messaged me saying that he's noticed that I've been posting this more often and that I shouldn't because it would harm my reputation. And it makes me look really weak. And I'm like, sir, first of all, it's my personal Instagram. Personal. And he's like, well, you probably have coworkers follow you and it's really bad for your reputation, your image. So you shouldn't post it. And your Mental Health Tuesdays make you look weak. So then that stuck out to me a lot. I was like, dude, you're just not someone who understands that vulnerability is courage. And we can agree to disagree, but I had to walk away from that relationship or friendship, yeah.
And again, as you called out, that vulnerability, we all can benefit from it. We can all benefit from more transparency because everyone is going through something. I don't know of anyone, whether at work or my friend circle, that are just like, yeah, everything is smooth sailing 24/7, zero challenges, life is perfect. Like, despite what Instagram makes you want to believe, it's not the case. And it's admirable when people go out of their way to show the fact that, like, actually, I am going through this and I'm seeking help and I'm being helped. And that's great. Like, it's one of those things that I feel like I appreciate what you do in that regard and sticking to your principles and your values. And the theme that I hear here is intentionality. Be very intentional about who you are, what you do, how you seek out people around you.
Yeah.
And that is the most important thing.
Yeah. I vibe with that.
So, Chloe, we're getting a time, and I have one question that I ask of all the guests on the show is one piece of uncommon advice for folks that are early in their career, they're just getting started, something that you learned through experience, and maybe you did not necessarily read in a blog post somewhere, or something that just kind of was like, I have maybe not the secret sauce to something, but just more of like, this is something worth paying attention to.
For someone that wants to follow my footsteps, man, I feel like my footsteps are not the ones to follow, though.
I think they are, because you've shared so many great insights today.
Man, I wish I had like a quote that sounds like really nice that you can put up on a wall or frame it, but I'm not as eloquent as that. I think that maybe this is a piece of advice I want to give myself. Yeah, as I continue to grow in my career, it's just who do I want to show up as tomorrow in my life, and what's stopping me from getting there? And so those are the questions that I really want to answer, because I feel like, and I guess like, why do I want to be that version, that Chloe? Like, why do I even want to be, I don't know, like grinding it in tech, or just being a product manager, or like have these LinkedIn posts, or I'm not too sure. Why do I want to be so busy all the time? Why do I want to spend my time doing XYZ? Like, what kind of person do I want to shape myself to be? And can I start becoming her now? Yeah, because I feel like throughout my entire career, I have just looked at other people and what success looks like from like the small window that I see of them. And I'm like, oh shoot, I have to be that, I guess. Like, my parents told me, my school told me, the TechCrunch told me, Forbes told me. And honestly, that's never the complete picture. Most people that I've seen that I got to meet in real life who've like been super featured online actually have some of the like the most chaotic lives that I would never want to live. I would never want to be in that path. And that's like, okay, they're going through it, we're going through it. But I just never really respected my own voice and my own desires. It was always like, I need to be a certain way for other people to validate who I am. But I want to switch it to, can I just not give a shit about what other people are saying? Like, so what if I don't get the promotion? So what if they think of me poorly, or I didn't show up on time because I wanted to do something else? Um, can I just be the Chloe that I am proud to be right now, and like everyone else just takes a backseat. And I think that's like a really hard mental shift because I'm really such like a quote unquote good girl. Like I am very very responsible, very very to the book. I'm the oldest sister. I've always been the person in the group project that saves the group. Like I'm the note taker. I'm in the front of the classroom, and I realized I never did that for myself. I just did it for others. Yeah. So that's why I feel like my path wasn't the right path because it wasn't even my path. I'm only beginning my path maybe as soon as I can, like now, like today, I hope. But yeah, I think that's what it is. I guess the TLDR is follow your own path and follow your own voice. Because like when you finally accomplish it all, like I guess where I'm at today, where else is there to go? I'm at a really lucky, fortunate position. There's it feels really, it doesn't feel as like, whoa, amazing fanfare as you would think. Yeah.
I like the framing of asking the why question. Just asking why. Why do you want this? So many people miss that part where you're kind of like we talked about earlier, you know, the college, working in big tech or doing any of that. It's like, why? Is it money? That's a good reason.
Yeah, that's very fine. It's very realistic.
What is driving you? And I think that this has been a great, insightful episode that everyone should watch. And before we wrap up, where can people find you online and learn more about the work that you're building and will be building?
Yeah. Yeah, so I started a YouTube channel too, and it's called Colors of Chloe, where I share stories about my career and like vlog a little bit about my life and share some of the inner thoughts in a fun, creative way. So hope people can enjoy that. I also stream on Twitch. Usually it's co-working sessions, you know, chill sessions to talk about anything career, life, development. And I have a Discord server with that's also called Colors of Chloe. You can just find all the links on YouTube. It's like in the YouTube video, in the description, whatever. So those are some great places to get connected. Yeah, and that's where like I hope I can invest more time in the near future.
Excellent. Well, Chloe, thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Den, and thanks for all the thoughtful questions. I know we went all over the place, but hope it has been insightful to all the listeners.
Those are the best episodes.
Amazing.